Call the California High-Speed Rail Authority into session. Let me ask you, Commissioner Schenk, can you hear us? San Diego?
I certainly can, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Good.
All right. Why don't we begin? Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Dearden, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
We have a flag here. Good. States of America and the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Umberg?
Here.
Ms. Schenk?
Ms. Schenk? Ms. Schenk, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, we're calling the roll. So, Ms. Schenk?
Present.
Mr. Crane?
Here.
Mr. Dearden?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Here.
And Mr. Kopp?
Here.
Great. We're going to change the order of normal presentation today, and we're going to begin with a presentation on the corridor selection modification, the only substantive item that's on the agenda this morning. But let me begin by thanking the folks of Wisconsin and Ohio for their generosity.
Nice Christmas present.
I actually grew up in Ohio, and I'm familiar with the hospitality of the Midwest, but this year they've really outdone themselves. So, and I think California's birthday is coming up here in the spring, so just a word to the folks in Ohio and Wisconsin that we're grateful and would be happy to receive other gifts of that nature. All right, having said that, why don't we proceed to the first item, item number 1. Mr. Van Ark.
Tom, is Roloff speaking?
He's not speaking yet, Lynn. He's going to.
Okay, thank you. We just didn't know if we...
Yeah.
Sorry, it took a little while to get to the podium.
Can you hear him now?
Not very well. Roloff, if you wouldn't mind speaking closer to the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the presentation to the board today is on the agenda item number 1, section selection modification. At the board meeting of the 2nd of December, the board approved the selection of an initial construction section based on the presentation done by the authority staff at the time. This selection, referred to as Alternative 1 in the board documentation for the meeting, was approved by the board with a vote of 7-0. As the chairman just mentioned, the states of Wisconsin and Ohio decided not to proceed with their high-speed projects, making approximately $1.95 billion of AHSRA funds available, which was previously allocated to them. On Thursday, December the 9th, the Federal Railroad Administration informed the authority that they were allocated $616 million, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that. There was a statement of $624 million. The delta between the 624 and the 616 million is for other projects that are controlled by Caltrans. So $616 million of the returned funds would go to high-speed rail, and of which a smaller portion will go for station design, station area planning, right-of-way preservation applied to various of the Phase 1 sections. Some clarity has in the meanwhile been received as far as station design and station area planning is concerned. We are aware that $500,000 will be allocated to both Merced and Bakersfield for station design. These $500,000 would need to be matched with 50% local funding. In addition, the FRA has allocated another $4.5 million, which will be made available for station area planning, again to be matched with 50% local funding for Phase 1 stations, which will include planning for Fresno, Visalia Kings, Bakersfield, Merced, Palmdale, Gilroy, and San Jose, among others. It is envisaged that station area plans are prepared in partnership with local governments as needed. Various details of this transaction are still being worked on with the FRA. As you know, we were well prepared for signing this agreement by the end of this calendar year. We still have to sign this agreement by the end of the calendar year. And I request that you will allow me after today's meeting this bit of flexibility to conclude the funding cooperation agreement with the FRA on behalf of the authority, incorporating any such additional small details. At this point, I would like to make one clarification, which is necessary after a discussion I had with Congressman Cardoza about a few weeks ago. It is not correct that Merced and the track leading to Merced are now part of Phase 2 of our project. If this was the interpretation from the previous presentations, it was incorrect, as Merced remains part of Phase 1 of the high-speed rail project. As the total amount of AHSRA funds now being made available to the authority, which is $2.87 billion, excluding the $715 million, which were FY10 funds, is less than the original amount which was requested by the authority originally. The FRA has requested that the $616 million be incorporated into the funding and cooperative agreements, which are to be concluded by the authority by December the 31st of 2010. And secondly, that the $616 million be matched with 50% local Prop 1A or equivalent funds. In many instances, more than one alignment alternative is being evaluated and will be available for eventual selection as the environmental process is concluded. In all instances, typical alignment sections, including alternatives, have been used for costing reasons. However, this should not be construed as a preference for one alignment over another, but rather as a necessity for reason of fair costing. FRA is requiring the extension of the initial construction section of the high-speed rail to initiate a grant agreement to provide construction funding, and this will be conditional upon completion of the environmental studies and the selection of the final alignment and the issuance of a ROD-NOD by the fall of 2011. Throughout the process, and I've often mentioned this and I would like to repeat it again, throughout the process, it should be remembered that California high-speed rail system will be the backbone passenger rail system for the state and needs to connect southern and northern California, including the metropolitan areas of Los Angeles, Anaheim, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, Sacramento, and Bay Area. This first step in the process to select and then build the first segment of a line is only the beginning of a continuous process, which would logically lead to the continued construction of the alignment until the whole network is interconnected. So the eligibility of the applications. The FRA requires that any rail project using AHSRA funding be capable of demonstrating operational independence or independent utility. I repeat this because I've had many telephone calls, again in this last month, of people who have still not understood operational independence or independent utility, as it is defined in Section 3.5.2 of the Notice of Funding Availability upon completion. A project is considered to have operational independence if, upon being implemented, it will provide tangible and measurable benefits, even if no additional investment in the same service are made. Examples of these benefits include operational reliability improvement, travel time reductions, and additional service frequencies resulting in increased ridership. In particular, this requirement means that the improvement can be used for existing or new intercity rail passenger operations, including Amtrak and other intercity services, should further high-speed rail funds not be made available. Such service is clearly specified as being intercity service. In the Central Valley, the Amtrak San Joaquin service would offer operational independence by connecting the new infrastructure to the existing BNSF network on which it operates today. Just a few statements on the chronology of the events. You know that in January the 28th, 2010, the U.S. DOT announced the selection of 4 segments, and California received its first allocation of AHSRA funds. On October the 25th, 2010, the U.S. DOT announced an additional $715 million of FY10 funds for the authority to use in the Central Valley. And on December the 2nd, the Authority Board approved and adopted the resolution, the allocation of these funds for what we refer to as the initial build in the Central Valley. And then on December the 9th, the FRA announced the additional $616 million of AHSRA funds to be used in the Central Valley. So investigation of the alternatives and the way we went about investigating the alternatives for the allocation of the $616 million of AHSRA funding announced on December the 9th. Firstly, and it is in your paperwork, we call it C1, the construction to the north of the initial construction of the original alternative 1. As you know, the environmental alternatives carried forward in the EIS analysis include 3 viable alternatives to the north of the initial build section, that means between Fresno and Merced. One of these alternatives follows the BNSF alignment, One is purely on the UP railroad alignment, and one is a hybrid which makes use of BNSF immediately north of the initial build and then follows the UP railroad alignment. As the outcome of the environmental process and the selection of the preferred alignment can only take place around the middle to the fall of 2011, after the issuance of the ROD nod, there is a possibility that an alternative, which will be purely based on the UP railroad alignment, could become the preferred alternative or alignment. If this were to happen, the requirement of independent utility would not be guaranteed for an extension north of the initial construction section, unless sufficient funds were to come available to ensure connectivity to the BNSF north of Merced at the Air Force Base Castle. Thus, it becomes a high risk to apply the newly allocated ARRA funds north of the initial construction portion, because the funding could not be used if the UP railroad becomes the preferred alignment. This would mean that such funding which we've been granted could become stranded funding and for obvious reasons would not be usable at the time. So then we looked at the section going south of the initial construction of Alternative 1. The alignments to the south to Bakersfield of the initial construction run mainly along the BNSF with some bypass loops. Accordingly, connections to the BNSF track can be readily achieved, thereby meeting the operational independence or independent utility requirements of the ARRA funding. The actual miles of construction which can be built with the 616 million, including the POP 1A funds, which is a total of approximately 1.2 billion, will depend on the final selection of environmental impacts, which would incorporate C1, C2, A1, A2, WS1, and WS2, which in each case are through or bypass of towns or sections in the southern portion. This alternative to Bakersfield and the various iterations thereof offer numerous tie-ins to the BNSF track, as I mentioned before, and therefore offers surety to the authority that operational independence would be achieved and that the use of the new 616 million matched by another 616 million could be optimally used. These alternatives could result in an initial construction section of up to 123 miles being constructed for the first 5.5 billion, which is available to us today, starting south of Madeira or north of Fresno, down to Bakersfield. So with that introduction and discussion, my recommendation to the board is that the board delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the authority to conclude the funding cooperative agreement with the FRA on behalf of the authority by the end of December 2010, incorporating the major portion of the additional amount of 616 million for the continuation of the initial construction to the south to Bakersfield, Kings County. Mr. Chairman, with that presentation, I ask for questions for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Van Ark. Let me start with Commissioner Schenck in San Diego. Commissioner Schenck, any questions, comments?
No, thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly, that this will go from north of Fresno down to including Bakersfield.
Down to Bakersfield.
Down to Bakersfield.
And subject to, obviously, the outcome of the various environmental alternatives that need to be selected.
That's always the caveat, but this as I said at the last meeting, it just there were so many questions. We understand the technical reasons why the first alternative was selected, but it sort of defied common sense. People reacted with fairly strong negative comments that attached to this first section, and this makes a lot more sense. I'm very pleased that we got the money. We thank Ohio and Wisconsin greatly for it, and this just alleviates some of the concerns that I had expressed at the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Shank. Other questions? Commissioner Dearden.
Make sure that she understands that accurately. Ruoff, the extension will go to the north of Bakersfield, but not into Bakersfield.
That's right, to the northern boundary of Bakersfield.
And the reason for that is that we just don't have enough money to get it downtown.
Within the Bakersfield area, as you recall, is again an elevated platform. However, we will offer interconnectivity to the Bakersfield Amtrak station by the solution. But you are correct.
Okay. Secondly, can you put on the record that this action in no way affects the selection process that we're involved with now in regard to the maintenance base?
Yes, I would like to put that on record. You're quite correct that this decision, again, has no effect on the heavy maintenance facility selection process, and that will still take many months and even to some extent some years before that final decision will be made. This will have no effect on the heavy maintenance facility selection.
Other questions? All right. As I mentioned at the outset, we're going to do things a little differently today. Thank you, Mr. Van Ark. And we're going to have members' reports and the CEO report, public comment, and then we're going to vote. We're required to receive public comment before voting, and I see anxious members of the audience. Don't worry, we're going to get to public comment. Let me ask Commissioner Shank, do we have public comment from the San Diego location?
Any public comment in San Diego? Seeing none.
Okay, great. All right, members' reports. Members wish to report? Any members' reports?
Reports that don't necessarily relate to this item?
No, whatever members' reports one would have.
I would like to report that I just returned from 9 days in China, a trip paid for by the Research Department of the U.S. Department of Transportation and the China Academy of Transportation Sciences. It was an academically based trip at which I spoke to 3 international conferences on academic issues. And I did get to ride the high-speed train, though. And it's very impressive.
Thank you, Commissioner Dearden. Seeing no other members wishing to report, let me just make 2 comments. First, with respect to the characterization, or more appropriately, the mischaracterization of what was done with respect to selecting the first
section for construction. I realize that some reports, irrespective of how accurately we communicate the information, are going to be miscommunicated for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that I think that we could benefit from is lessons learned from the last 30 days or so. So I'd ask Mr. Van Ark if we could collect some lessons learned into how we could do a better job communicating what we did, what we intended, and what the effects will be, so that we can make sure that the people of California understand what we're about, and that we're about creating a system from Northern California to Southern California, not building a section from 2 locations within the Central Valley. Okay. And then secondly, there's also some confusion as to what the powers are of the High-Speed Rail Authority with respect to acquisition of real estate. And perhaps at a future meeting, if we could have a presentation as to what powers exist with the authority in terms of acquisition of real estate and other essentials for the construction of ultimately the construction of the system. All right. CO's report. Oh. Commissioner Kopp.
I have discussed with Mr. Van Ark questions that have been asked about the number of takings in the already approved and the recommended extension of application of the $616 million, and that is not currently available but will be available by our next meeting, and so that can be incorporated in that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kopp. In the interest of time, I'm going to call another audible here, and we're going to take public comment, defer the CEO's report, take public comment, and then we'll vote on the action item. So, public comment. First, we'll have Mr. Snade, followed by Mr. Conway, followed by Mr. Spalding.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Umberg. My name is Bob Snoddy from Kern Council of Governments, and although I look like I'm here alone today, I'm actually carrying hand delivering.
Sorry, but I'm having trouble. We all are having trouble hearing. If we could ask the speakers to speak directly into the microphone.
Okay, I'm leaning forward. Can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you so much.
Okay, this is Bob Snoddy from Kern Council of Governments. Today I hand-delivered letters of support for staff's recommendation today. I bring support from the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, from Kern County Supervisors Watson and Maggard, and also for Kern Council of Governments. And we had a meeting on Friday that brought a lot of stakeholders together, and it couldn't have been possible except for the input we received from Carrie Porvihidi, from Rachel Wall, also from Mr. Popoff and Mr. Tracy. We appreciate the staff's input. It was critical in helping us garner this type of support. So happy holidays to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Conway, followed by Mr. Spalding.
Hello, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board. I'm Mike Conway. I'm here on behalf of Merced Mayor Bill Spriggs. I want to join you in thanking Wisconsin and Ohio for their gift to us. It's a nice Christmas present. I do want to say that we are disappointed in staff's recommendation, but we do thank Mr. Van Ark for his clarification both on the inclusion of Merced in Phase 1 and regarding the heavy maintenance facility. We urge the board to continue with transparency in the process of funding the rail segments and planning of the stations. We do not want to derail the project. We do not want to obstruct the construction of a high-speed rail. We do support the project. Merced will work with the California High-Speed Rail Authority to see that this magnificent transit system that spans the entire state of California is up and running as soon as possible. Thank you all very much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Mr. Spalding. Mr. Spalding will be followed by Council Member Kahn and then Ms. King.
Mr. Chairman, members of the authority, my name is John Spalding. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Kern and Ramona Counties Building and Construction Trades Council. And we represent over 25 unions and over 8,000 members in the Kern County area. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, we can also continue. I'm so sorry, but unless the speaker speaks directly into the microphone, like, give it a kiss, we simply can't hear, and to the extent you might...
I'll pick one mic over the other. Is that better?
Talk into the mic.
Is that better?
I think the challenge is that the microphone actually doesn't transmit directly to the phone line, that Commissioner Schenk hears because of the public address system, so you have to speak both into the mic and loudly.
I will try and do that. If I fail that, let me know. I can also assure you that the Central Labor Council, which represents over 40 unions and 25,000 members in the Kern County area, are in support. They have submitted a letter prior to when you made your decision at your meeting last month. We are here to support the high-speed rail recommendation, and we are excited. We can assure you that the labor community is excited and supportive of the Kern County Board of Supervisors and their letters of support for your decision. I think it's important to let you know that I also feel representative of the over 37% unemployed in our area, and over 40% building and construction tradesmen in the Kern County area. By extending to the south, you allow Kern County to participate, because when you speak of north-south, the dividing line is the northern Kern County line. And this means that building and construction tradesmen will be able to participate once you break over that line. So we are excited. We have been excited about this project since its inception, and we've been an avid supporter of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Council member, thank you for also your hospitality here in Sacramento and allowing us to use your home.
Our pleasure. Steve Cohn, City Council member here in Sacramento, also here on behalf of the 22 cities and 6 counties that make up the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. I'm also a board member of the Capital Corridor, JPA, and Regional Transit here in Sacramento. I want to get clarification first. Do I understand the staff recommendation today? It's not in the written report, but does include now design of the Merced station as part of this initial
I'll let
funding.
Mr. Van Ark clarify.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned, there is some money for station design, and then there is still some further money available for more station area design.
Okay.
And those monies have to be matched 50-50 with local funds.
So is the staff recommendation then to include using that funding for Merced station?
We would be coming back to the board with clarity on these issues. At this stage, we are just trying to secure the funding with the FRA. That is why, between now and the end of the year, which is 2 weeks from now, a week and a half kind of, we have to secure the funding, and after that we will come back to the board and explain exactly what's in there.
Okay, so at this time it's for the station funding, then you'll decide where to put that future board meeting.
Yeah, the allocation to the various stations, as I mentioned in my discussion, for station area planning, there's a recommendation to start with the stations that will be built first, obviously, and then to move outwards, and but apply it to those that need it, of course, and at the same time those that can match is the second challenge.
All right. And I want to thank you also for the clarification about what's part of Phase 1 and the commitment to connect to the rest of the state, including Sacramento. We feel we've had a good partnership with the Central Valley Working Group and your staff, but we understand that funding may be coming to an end on the Phase 2 environmental, and we're very concerned that we continue to work together so that this initial system, whether it's the initial system you're discussing now or even all of Phase 1, does connect with the Sacramento region. We also want to be sure that there's connectivity with the Capital Corridor, which is still the fastest growing intercity train service in America and the third largest in this country. So it's important for us to see that is continued to be a major element of the system, that we connect with the existing and future conventional rail systems in California. So look forward to that partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. King, then Mr. Kopshar.
Thank you. My name's Holly King.
One
Sure.
second, Ms. King. Commissioner Schenk, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think we're getting some feedback, so if you wouldn't mind putting your phone on mute when,
Sure.
when there's no one speaking at that location, that'd be great.
So everybody's got a mic on. Let's put it on mute. Is that better?
Yeah, but if you can try and mute the phone.
Yeah, we're getting someone to do that.
Okay, thanks. Ms. King.
My name's Holly King, and I represent the Wasco Shafter Agricultural Group. There's 126 of us that you've heard from us before, so I won't go into that. I come both with a request, suggestion, but also, I think, some encouraging news. Based on the staff report and recent press releases indicating that there's some cost estimating going on related to the various alignments, it creates some concern and some fear among our agricultural landowners in our group based on the fact that we're concerned about a dialogue and having input from the ag arena. So what I am here to offer is our group would like to lend our agricultural expertise to try and combine that with staff expertise in rail construction, because we know nothing about that, and try and create that constructive dialogue so we can have an exchange of information. We would be very willing to do that. Secondly, I spoke to both John Gwynn, the city manager of Shafter, and Jim Zervis, who is the city manager of Wasco, and we are, I have their permission to say that we are close to consensus on the BNSF alignment through those two cities, an agreement between the agricultural producers and the two cities. We are not there yet, and they are meeting, the two of them are meeting today, and we will meet with Mr. Zervis on Thursday. So we're progressing in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, and we welcome the input from the agricultural community. Mr. Kopshar and then Mr. Talmak. And two more after that.
See if I can get this. Good. Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. My name is Jim Kopshever. I represent the city of Chowchilla. I would like to update you on some developments in the Chowchilla Y area. 2 weeks ago, we had a very, very productive meeting with high-speed rail staff. During this meeting, we began to outline some of the effects of high-speed rail on the Chowchilla Y area. We did agree that this would be the first of many meetings, and we look forward to those meetings. Now, as you know, there is division in Madera County regarding route selection. This will continue as long as the authority continues to study multiple routes. You should know that there exists strong support for the A1 north-south alignment used by the Amtrak. There is no support for the A2 alternative. There is also no support for the Avenue 24 east-west connection. The only east-west route that is being supported is Avenue 21, which the Rail Authority is looking at. City of Chowchilla continues to support the A1 and the Avenue 21 connections. The City of Chowchilla continues to look forward to working with the authority and to build the high-speed rail in California. I'd like to wish all of you a happy holiday to you and yours. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tolmach, and then our final comment from Ms. Mortensen.
Mr. Vice Chair, board members, my name is Rich Tolmach, President of the California Rail Foundation. I wanted to focus on two primary items. First one is the extreme eccentricity of the starter line proposal, in that the 54-mile segment, the original, the beginning piece, has more miles of viaduct than the first 1,000 miles of the TGV network in France have. And I want to say that California has misunderstood what high-speed rail is. This project has redefined it as elevated trains, which, if they're elevated on a structure where they don't have to be, it makes the system much more dangerous than it otherwise would be, and also tremendously more costly. There's about $3 billion of extra expense just in that 54-mile segment from being on structure and having the further requirement that the structure be able to hold an Amtrak train with locomotives makes that structure almost impossible to cost. And so I believe that you're going on the basis of cost estimates which are not trustworthy at this point because you do not know what the earthquake standards are going to be when you get up that high in the air above Fresno. The other thing I wanted to focus on is the fact that this project seems to be designed to do nothing useful until the very last minute. And so it's in this way, it's like the Big Dig or other projects, like the bridge project we see, nothing useful until the last piece. And so I think that you owe it to the public to look at closing the gap in the rail network, which everybody knows is between Bakersfield and Santa Clarita, not north in the valley, where all you're doing is duplicating existing trackage. Now, somebody said, oh, it makes a lot of sense to start in the middle. It may, because, the example given was the Transcontinental Railroad started in Omaha and went west. Well, this project you have, the proposal before you, is like starting in Omaha and building east and duplicating everything that already existed on the Chicago Northwestern before you even start to close 1 mile of gap. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Mortensen, and then I'm going to ask for the vote, and then we'll have the CEO's report.
Thank you. I represent the Altamont Commuter Express and the Central Valley Rail Working Group, and I'm in support of your success in securing additional federal funding and expanding the initial valley segment. I'm very pleased to hear that you will consider giving planning money for the station design in Merced. And as a true partner, we understand sometimes we have to help other segments before we get to our own. We will commit to try to work to help Merced come up with the matching funds so that they can be eligible for that funding. I tend to be someone that looks at the chessboard and looks a few moves down the road. While I understand the need for independent utility in these first risky segments, I encourage the authority to look down the road and work with the FRA so that this initial San Joaquin's utility can be leveraged for other segments where it might be impossible to have this utility. For instance, the San Jose connection might not be able to be made in one big jump, as we're seeing the funding trickles in smaller pieces. The piece from Fresno to Merced, or in that northern Merced area, may in fact run along the UP, which in some sections is quite away from BNSF. And up north of Stockton, BNSF doesn't exist at all. So I worry that this, since we have to plan in such small segments, they may not all be possible to have this independent utility. Really encourage you to think about that now and work with the FRA now so that we can leverage where the utility is possible, but still let some of these other sections go forward as we expand the system. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, having heard public comment, next, if I could ask Mr. Van Ark to specifically state the resolution. Do you have the language?
I didn't have it.
As I recall, you'd said that the resolution is to delegate to the CEO of the authority to negotiate with respect to the additional funding available as a consequence of Ohio and Wisconsin declining the FRA fund.
That the board delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the authority to conclude the funding cooperative agreement with the FRA on behalf of the authority by the end of December 2010, incorporating the major portion of the additional amount of $616 million for the continuation of the initial construction to the south to Bakersfield, Kings County.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Mr. Dearden moves. Commissioner Kopp seconds. Discussion?
Yeah, just be sure to send members copies of the agreement after it's signed.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, the only other point is that the CEO provided quite a bit of elaboration at the microphone, which was very strategically important, and I hope that that portion of his elaboration would be included in the minutes verbatim in order that we would be able to refer back to it when the time comes.
if I understand you correctly, you're asking for his presentation to be in the minutes verbatim?
The portion that related to the use of the $5.5 million worth of area planning, station area planning.
Okay.
And the reference to the all of the maintenance bases continuing to be under consideration.
Okay. All righty. Commissioner Flores?
No, I found what I needed.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Seeing no further comment, Madam Secretary, if you'd call the roll.
Mr. Umberg?
Aye.
Ms. Schenk?
Ms. Schenk, do you hear us?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Crane?
Aye.
Mr. Diridon?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Aye.
And Mr. Kopp?
Aye.
All right. The motion carries. All right. Next, the CEO report.
Mr. Chairman, the CEO's report, I will discuss. I think there are some issues that happened in November and December. As you recall, at the beginning of December meeting, I was not able to participate, so I will cover a few of them from November and December. In November, there was a Senate Transportation Committee, which was mainly focused on the issue of ridership. I'd like to advise you that we have formed a 5-person expert panel to act as a peer review group under the chairmanship of Professor Frank Koppelman, and this peer review group will also include Professor Ken Small, who is being allocated from the ITS group. I hope that with these experts on board, we will be able to have the best peer review of a very delicate and very difficult subject, and that we can really talk about this very openly, because this is a great peer review group we put together here. I did presentations in the Bay Area Council Economic Institute Board presentations, met with the Southern Californian CEOs a few times of transportation agencies, presented at OC Moves in Orange County, had many meetings with suppliers. The suppliers are starting to form a consortia and are starting to indicate their interest and willingness to participate in this project as they see it becoming real. And so we've had many meetings with various supplier groups. We've had meetings with the ag community and in the Central Valley and also in my office, and I thank in particular Kathleen Galgiani, who takes a leading role in trying to ensure that we get open forum to discuss things with the ag community, and I think we are moving forward with them. You've heard some positive comments, and we will continue to work with the ag community. I've had many meetings and calls with elected officials, Congressman Cardozo, Supervisor Pedroza, Congressman Costa, and Senator Rubio, mayors, and of course, once again, I'd like to mention that I do get the support again of Assemblywoman Calziani as she supports us moving forward. Meetings just recently, because they had been planned for quite a while in Gilroy and Morgan Hill, I think were positive. There's a great need for continued communication and outreach to all these stakeholders. I think they were good meetings, and I think we will move forward with them in a very positive way. We had also meetings with the Army Corps of Engineers in Los Angeles, and we'll be having a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers here in Sacramento actually today. I did a presentation last week at PIAC, Public Infrastructure Advisory Commission, which again I think was very positive in that these are forums that we need to use to multiply the message and make people aware of what this project is really about. There's a great need for that type of outreach and communication. And we've had meetings with the LAO's office also on clarification of the project way forward. There are many other meetings that I've had or we have had, and the authorities' official outreach program continues in all sections, and if there are people who are concerned that there will be no work in their section, I can tell you that is incorrect, because although we are restructuring a bit the work that needs to be done, that's normal in life, we're having to look at the program, where we're going to be building, and we're going to be looking at all the other sections. A lot of that is purely pure, normal, standard management of a program. There are realignments necessary with our regional consultants in some sections because their budgets are not sufficient. Others have got too much in budget, and that is just a pure realignment of the needs that we are looking at the moment. On the organization side, unfortunately, as we've mentioned before, the transportation trailer bill was not passed, and therefore we did not get our 6 exempt manager positions. Again, under leadership of Assembly Member Gargiani, there is now a new bill which has been put forward, again asking for 5 or most likely 6 exempt positions. And this is, I think, under the category of an emergency bill, with the hope that we will be able to conclude this beginning of January when the budget phase, I think, or the first bills go through. Sorry, I'm not that good on the governmental things yet, but I know that they're putting a lot of effort into that. It is really of utmost importance, and I know there are many people that understand that and are supporting us in that direction. On the communications and outreach side, just generally, I know that there has been some disagreement and even the challenge that has been put forward to me by today's chairman that we should just be able to come back on lessons learned. And Mr. Umberg, we will do that. I have spoken myself also to the CEO of Ogilvy, the company Ogilvy, Chris Graves, and he personally is very involved in making sure that we have the team and the focus on the job to make things happen. We are getting much better support and involvement from the highest levels at Ogilvy, and this is making a difference. While there are still many things to be done, I think we're moving in the right direction. A big difference will happen in January when our new program manager for communications and outreach, Mr. Darrell Cole, will come and take over on, I think it's the 3rd of January, and he will be working full-time in the authority's office and will be working on the implementation of our outreach and communications strategy and plan. Meetings with the FRA, we had meetings between the 15th and the 18th of November when the FRA delegation visited the authority, and they did a review of the program and just made sure that we were on track to meet the obligations that we are set to meet. You know, there's a timeline, an important timeline for the ROD-NOD and thereafter the use of ARRA funds, which is in September 2017, and they want to be sure that we do not default on that as well, because those ARRA funds are there to be spent and to create jobs, so they want to make sure that we are going to be spending them and creating jobs. There was an issue, as many of you know, on the FPPC relating to past travel reporting of authority board members and senior staff. We are working with the FPPC to resolve these issues and have obtained the services of outside counsel, Remcho, Johansson and Purcell, and we will make sure that we always follow the law as far as reporting is concerned. These actions are ongoing, and I feel comfortable that we are doing what is required to resolve these issues. The litigation, the Atherton case, this was brought before a closed session last month, and it was agreed that we would go in closed session again in January at the board meeting to further discuss this particular issue. Finally, I would like to repeat once more, because I need to repeat this over and over again, and I do hear that people are starting to understand it, and that is that we must understand that high-speed rail is about that interconnectivity. It is not about building that initial segment or the initial portion. It is all about interconnecting high population areas through the Central Valley, and that it is our full intent to connect the Bay Area with the Los Angeles Basin as was proposed, and then incorporate the Sacramento line and the San Diego line. If anybody believes that we should only build 100 miles or so in the Central Valley, that is not about high-speed rail. High-speed rail is that interconnectivity at very high speed, and that is the goal and the aim and the vision of the authority, and we must never forget that. And that means that all the other sections that are involved in high-speed rail will be touched as we move forward, as we build the system for California and make this a much more efficient state and also get the people employed as they so need jobs at this particular stage. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Dearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Ruloff and the staff should receive a vote of confidence and thanks for working through this very difficult first step, especially Ruloff during a period of personal tragedy, and we all have already shared our condolences with you. The question that I wanted to ask was in regard to the communications process. As I recall, some time ago, we had asked you about pulling the communication organizations working for the regional or the quarter segment teams more closely under the central control of Ogilvy and Jeff. Could you at some point give us a report on how you're doing in terms of centralizing that communication link? I have a sense there are still some of the quarter communication organizations that may sometimes be a little more aggressive and out in the community saying things that aren't necessarily consistent with the central offices. I'm sorry, Lynn, I'll speak into the mic. I apologize. The point was, can you give us a report on your efforts at centralizing the communication, including the guidance of the individual outreach organizations working for the quarter engineers? Not necessarily now, but at some point in the future. Soon?
Member Dearden, you're correct. It has to be centrally controlled. It is one of the issues that will be addressed by this organizational change that's happening now. It was the intent before, and I will report back to you soon on what is happening in that way.
Thank you. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned. Happy holidays to all. Before I guess I completely adjourn.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay. I'm informed that Commissioner Burns could not be here today because of hospitalization, and I'm not exactly sure what that's about, but we wish him well and keep him in our thoughts and prayers over this holiday period. So thank you all. We're adjourned.